My wife joined a feminist social circle and started calling me a controlling a-hole and asking for divorce and open relationship while she was the one mistreating our kids, so I filed for accidentally ruined her life. I used to believe we were the lucky ones. My wife Jenna and I met in college sophomore year in a shared sociology class. She was witty, sharp, with this radiant laugh that turned heads across the library. I was the quieter type, but we connected over coffee shop debates and Netflix marathons that turned into slow dancing in the kitchen. Fast forward 10 years, we had a suburban house, 2 beautiful kids, Olivia, 9, and Mason, 6, a chocolate lab named Skip, and what I thought was a solid marriage. Back then, Jenna worked part-time as a graphic designer from home. I worked long hours in IT. We made it work. She had this strong sense of justice, always vocal about fairness and equality, but it never got in the way of our relationship. I admired that fire in her, honestly. I thought it made her a better mom, someone who would raise our daughter to be confident and our son to be kind. Things started shifting about a year and a half ago when Jenna joined this local feminist discussion group. At first, I thought it was great, a community for her to engage with, something intellectually fulfilling outside of parenting and design work. I even babysat more so she could attend. But then she started coming home different. She'd throw out words like patriarchal structure and emotional labor like weapons during regular conversations. If I asked her what time she'd be home or if she could grab groceries, she'd snap, "Stop policing me. I'm not your maid or your property." I was stunned. This was Jenna, the same woman who used to text me to see if I needed anything from Target. Now I was a controlling a-hole for mentioning the trash hadn't been taken out. At first I figured maybe she was just going through a phase. We all go through personal rediscoveries, right? I chalked it up to burnout, stress, even hormones. I tried to be supportive. I bought books she mentioned, read a few chapters, tried to understand where she was coming from. But the changes weren't just philosophical. They were personal. Her tone turned cold. She started laughing at me, not with me, especially in front of her new friends. She once told me during an argument, "All you do is bring in money. That's not the same as raising a family." I was floored. I'd been working 60-hour weeks to give our family comfort, and she made it sound like I was failing them. I kept trying to reconnect. I planned date nights, bought her favorite wine, set up a babysitter. She blew them off each time. Said she had meetings or needed space. Then she began staying out late. At first it was just the group. But then I overheard her whispering on the phone, giggling. She'd hang up the second I walked in. When I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just someone who gets me." That phrase haunted me. Around this time, she sat me down for a talk. Said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. Told me she believed monogamy was a tool of oppression and that we should consider opening our marriage. I sat there, stunned, blinking at her across the kitchen table like she'd just spoken another language. "Jenna," I said, "are you seeing someone?" She scoffed and said, "Don't be paranoid. This isn't about cheating. It's about freedom." But deep down I knew. I knew. That night, while she slept, I cried in the guest room like a child. I didn't want to believe it. This was the woman who once called me her best friend, who used to scribble hearts on Post-its in my lunch. Something had changed, but I couldn't tell if it was ideology or something darker. And that's when I started paying attention. It was around the time she asked for an open relationship that I started documenting things. Not because I was planning anything, not yet, but because I felt like I was going crazy and I needed proof for myself that this was actually happening. I started journaling every incident, saving texts, even voice memos on my phone when she'd say something that felt twisted. It stopped being ideological real quick. One evening I came home early from work, a rare thing for me, and found her on the phone, curled up in the corner of our couch, whispering with her feet tucked under her. She didn't hear me come in. I stood there, frozen, listening. Her voice dropped to a sultry tone. "I wish I could see you tonight. Yeah, he's clueless. It's like living with a piece of furniture." My stomach clenched. She didn't notice me until I deliberately stepped forward. She jumped up and hung up instantly. "Who was that?" I asked, already knowing. "None of your business," she spat. "Don't eavesdrop like a little boy." And then she had the audacity to say I was being emotionally abusive, that I was violating her privacy, that she was entitled to have friendships outside of marriage, and that I was exhibiting patriarchal control mechanisms. That phrase. It was like she'd swallowed a textbook and started spitting it at me every time she couldn't defend her actions. At first, I was too shocked to fight back. I just wanted to keep the peace. For the kids. But that night, after she went to bed, not even a glance in my direction, I sat alone in the dark living room and watched the baby monitor from our daughter's room. Olivia had been withdrawn lately, drawing pictures with storm clouds and crying whenever we raised our voices. Mason had started wetting the bed again. I realized this wasn't just happening to me. It was happening to them too. Jenna had started treating our kids like they were intrusions. Everything became a chore she resented. She'd sigh loudly when they asked for help, roll her eyes when Olivia tried to show her a school drawing. Once I caught her snapping at Mason, "God, can you just shut up for 5 minutes?" I confronted her. "Hey, that's our son," I said. She turned on me like a switchblade. "You don't get to tell me how to parent. I do everything around here while you hide at your job." But the truth? She hadn't packed a lunch in weeks. I was getting the kids ready, walking them to school, making dinner. She just sat with her group of enlightened friends or disappeared on long walks that always lasted hours. One day, I got bold. I checked her iPad, which she used to sync her texts. She'd forgotten to log out. That's when I saw his name. Craig. I clicked the thread. My hands shook. It wasn't just flirtation. They'd been meeting at a hotel near the park. She sent him pictures, some of herself, some mocking me. Called me neutered. Said I wouldn't even fight back if she brought Craig to Thanksgiving. That was the moment something died inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't smash the iPad. I just saved everything: screenshots, timestamps, location pins, even one voice memo she sent him laughing about how she told me I was the patriarchy. I made an appointment with a lawyer that week. But the final straw, the one that pushed me from planning to action, was what happened with Olivia. One night, Olivia came into my room, tears silently rolling down her face. She told me I was going to grow up weak like you, she whispered. I froze. She said girls don't need dads. That I should learn not to rely on men because they'll control you. I held my daughter so tight that night I thought I'd break us both. That's when I knew. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a war zone, and my kids were in the crossfire. I wasn't the type of guy who made waves. I hated confrontation, hated yelling. But the night Olivia came to me in tears, something flipped. I stopped seeing Jenna as my wife and started seeing her for what she'd become: a manipulator, a threat to our children, and a danger wrapped in ideology. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. This time I wasn't just asking about divorce. I wanted to know what it would take to get primary custody. He told me to start documenting everything. That if I wanted to prove emotional harm to the kids, I'd need more than screenshots of her affair. I'd need dates, details, and if possible, witnesses. So I started a notebook. Every tantrum she threw at the kids, every time Olivia flinched when her mom entered the room, every cold, bitter remark she made to Mason, I wrote it all down. I started keeping audio logs when she screamed, made sure to talk to the kids' teachers, even scheduled them for therapy. The therapist later testified that Olivia showed signs of emotional neglect and anxiety related to her home environment. Mason too, though his were harder to trace. The confrontation, when it finally happened, was strange. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I waited until a Saturday morning after she'd returned from another feminist workshop, which I now knew was code for sleeping at Craig's place, and I asked her to sit down at the table. The same table we once picked out together from a little shop in town when we were newlyweds and still believed in forever. She sat across from me like she was tolerating a sermon. I know everything, I said. Craig. The hotels. The texts. The pictures. Everything. She didn't flinch. Didn't deny it. Just exhaled like I'd finally caught up. So what, she said. You want to punish me for wanting more than this dull, suburban prison? I blinked. You cheated on me. You've lied to me, you've emotionally hurt our kids. They're fine, she snapped. Stop being dramatic. They need to toughen up. There was that look again, smug, detached, like she was floating above it all, too enlightened to be held accountable. I've already talked to a lawyer, I said quietly. I'm filing. And I'm going for custody. That got her attention. You wouldn't, she hissed, suddenly leaning forward like a cobra. You'd really try to rip this family apart just because I had the courage to explore myself? No, I said. You did that all by yourself. She stood up so fast her chair screeched backward on the tile. You're a coward, she spat. You're just mad you can't control me anymore. I wanted to laugh. Control her? She'd been running wild while I kept the kids fed, clothed, and protected from the tornado she'd become. The next few days were a blur. She told her friends I was a misogynist, that I'd weaponized the courts against her because I was insecure and couldn't handle a powerful woman. One of her friends even messaged me saying she's finally becoming her true self. Why are you trying to crush that? Because her true self was blowing up our lives. She tried to spin the open relationship thing as mutual, claimed I'd agreed to it and that I was backing out now that she was finding fulfillment. But she left out the part where I begged her not to go through with it. That I told her I didn't want to sleep with anyone else. That I still loved her then. It was surreal watching her rewrite the entire narrative like she was the victim. She even posted on social media about leaving a toxic man who suppressed her for years. People clapped. Heart emojis. Fire reacts. A few even wrote, "Yes, Queen." Meanwhile, Olivia stopped eating breakfast. Mason cried every night. I started sleeping on the couch. She locked the bedroom door. We lived like Cold War roommates for 3 weeks while the legal wheels turned. Then one night, she left. Just didn't come home. The next morning, she texted, "I need space. I'll be staying with a friend for a while. Don't poison the kids against me." No apology. No concern. Just a warning. But here's the thing, I wasn't poisoning the kids. I didn't have to. They already knew something was wrong. Children aren't dumb, they feel everything even when you try to shield them. That's when I made my final move. I filed for full custody. I included everything, the affair, the neglect, the therapist reports, the text logs. My lawyer told me it wouldn't be easy, that courts are hesitant to remove a mother unless the evidence is strong. So I made damn sure it was. I always thought divorce was a paperwork thing. Lawyers, signatures, splitting up furniture. What I didn't expect was how dirty, cruel, and emotionally eviscerating it would become, especially when kids are involved and your soon-to-be ex sees you not as a partner but as an obstacle to her freedom. After Jenna left that night, I didn't hear from her for 3 days. No check-ins on the kids, no goodnights, nothing. Olivia kept asking when mommy would come home. Mason stopped drawing his silly little dinosaur comics. It was like someone had sucked the color out of our house. On the 4th day, her lawyer contacted mine. She was contesting the custody petition. Claimed I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and that I had manipulated the children into fearing her. She even said I was using traditional gender roles to limit her self-expression. I remember reading that line in the motion and just staring at it. I'd cooked, cleaned, packed lunches, walked them to school, tucked them in every night. Meanwhile, she'd been sneaking off to cheat and telling our daughter to stop depending on men. I wasn't mad. I was numb. The court date for the temporary custody hearing came fast. I had my ducks in a row, the therapist's statements, text messages, the calendar of absences and documented neglect, even a statement from Olivia's teacher who'd noticed a serious dip in her behavior around the time Jenna started changing. Jenna showed up in a beige pantsuit and a smirk, flanked by her lawyer and one of her friends from the group, the one who always wore "Kill the Patriarchy" shirts at school pickup. She looked right through me like I was a ghost. She cried on the stand. Said I stifled her. That I made her feel like a caged bird. Claimed I discouraged her independence and mocked her beliefs. My lawyer, bless him, didn't even flinch. He asked her why, if I was so oppressive, she had voluntarily quit her job and left most parenting to me. Why she'd asked for an open marriage. Why she'd called me a piece of furniture to her affair partner in a text we submitted as evidence. She had no good answers. Then came the moment that flipped the judge's face from neutral to concerned, the therapist's notes. They included Olivia's words quoted directly. "Mommy says I'm too soft and I have to stop crying like a little girl. She says boys don't matter and I shouldn't love daddy too much." That hit hard. The judge granted me temporary primary custody pending a full evaluation. Jenna exploded in the hallway afterward. She cornered me outside the courtroom, hissing, "You're such a weak little man. Enjoy your hollow victory. You'll regret this." I just looked at her and said, "They're safe now. That's all I care about." After that, everything became a mess. She started posting all over social media, calling me a misogynist, a liar, saying I'd weaponized the legal system to silence her voice. She even claimed I'd brainwashed our kids. Her little echo chamber lapped it up. "Stay strong, Queen," they wrote. "You're escaping a narcissist." I didn't respond. Not publicly. But I kept saving the posts. Every lie she spread became another stone in the wall between her and reality. Then she started begging. I got texts like, "Let's just drop the lawyers. We can co-parent and be civil. The system is designed to punish women. Please don't do this. You're destroying everything because of your fragile ego." When that didn't work, she went back to threats. "If you don't back off, I'll make sure you never see them again." I told my lawyer. We filed a motion to restrict unsupervised visitation until the full psychological evals came in. Meanwhile, the kids, they started healing. It was subtle. Olivia started leaving her bedroom door open at night again. Mason stopped waking up screaming. One night, I caught them both asleep on the couch with Skip curled up between them, Finding Nemo paused on the TV. I just sat there in the dark, watching them breathe. I hadn't realized how much tension had taken over our home until it left. At one point, Olivia asked me, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy smile at us anymore?" I didn't have an answer. So I just held her. That's when I knew I wasn't just fighting for custody. I was fighting for their future. By the time the custody evaluator finished their report, Jenna had been gone for almost 2 months. She'd only seen the kids twice, both times supervised, and both times it didn't go well. The first visit, Olivia refused to hug her. Jenna scolded her in front of the court-appointed supervisor, saying, "You're being dramatic. You're not a baby anymore." Mason just cried in the corner. She ignored him until the visit was over. The evaluator noted Jenna showed a lack of attunement to her children's emotional states and minimized or dismissed distressing behavior as inconvenient rather than alarming. That was the clean, clinical version. The reality? She couldn't be bothered to act like a mom. Her focus was still herself, her healing journey, her liberation, her public image. She posted selfies at yoga retreats while Olivia had nightmares. She made TikToks about empowering your inner goddess while Mason asked why his mommy didn't want to tuck him in anymore. But here's what really sealed it. During the evaluation interview, Jenna admitted she'd never wanted children, that I had pressured her into motherhood. She said she resented how the kids tied her down. The evaluator asked how she handled that resentment. Her answer? "I tried to rise above it. But I'm human. And they don't exactly make it easy." That quote made it into the final report. Along with the screenshots of her calling me a manipulative worm, the voice recordings of her yelling at Mason, and testimony from Olivia's school counselor. When the final custody hearing came, Jenna looked tired. Diminished. Not the smug, fiery crusader she'd been in the beginning. Her lawyer tried to spin it all, said she was emotionally overwhelmed and facing the societal pressures placed on modern women. He called me traditional like it was a slur. My lawyer calmly read the list of missed appointments, presented the therapy notes, and showed the court a side-by-side of her Instagram posts and her visitation logs. She'd missed her son's birthday to attend a retreat in Arizona with a group called Sisters of the Wild Womb. At one point, the judge asked her, "Do you believe your children's emotional needs should take priority over your personal development?" Jenna hesitated. She hesitated. That silence was the loudest thing I've ever heard. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Sole physical and legal custody awarded to me. Jenna would be allowed monitored visitation once a week, subject to regular review. She was ordered to attend parenting classes and submit to a psychological evaluation every 6 months if she wanted to request expanded visitation. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. I walked out of that courthouse with shaking hands and tears I didn't want anyone to see. Not because I was happy, not exactly. But because the fight was over and my kids were safe. Jenna, though? She lost it. She started a GoFundMe titled, "Help Me Reclaim My Children from Patriarchy." Claimed I'd stolen her kids through legal trickery and weaponized masculinity. She raised $112 before the campaign was reported and taken down. Her friends started peeling away after that. The woman who once praised Jenna for finally breaking free commented on one of her posts, "Maybe it's time to take some accountability." Then her employer, the design firm she'd freelanced for, dropped her. Word had gotten around. One of the most bitter ironies? She told me I'd ruined her life. As if I'd done this to her. As if she hadn't burned everything down and handed me the ashes. She tried contacting Olivia once, sent her an email filled with passive-aggressive apologies and weird metaphors about phoenixes rising from patriarchal flames. Olivia didn't respond. Just showed me the email and said, "Can I block her?" I didn't say yes. I didn't have to.